course, I'm really honored to be here just to share a bit of my story. And I would like to congratulate the winners tonight and all the nominees. I'll go straight into my speech and I won't be too long. In December 2011, I resigned from my role, terminated my lease, sold my furniture and flew back to Harare. I had no intentions of coming back. I had originally arrived in Australia 4 years prior to that moment, attracted by brighter economic prospects. But as many of you would attest, better opportunities are just one side of an immigrant story. The promised land felt infinitely distant to me. The strain of bearing my past, the struggle to belong, and the baseless but deeply rooted belief that the odds of me succeeding here as a young African man were razor thin proved quite overwhelming. Rebuilding my social and professional life here was difficult, hence my decision to go back to the terrain I was familiar with. Thank goodness, the planned negotiations fell through, and I returned back to Sydney in 2012. We stayed with friends, and after several weeks, I landed a new job. Hitting the rock bottom provided a solid foundation for me to dream anew. 4 years ago, I gathered the courage to ditch the meaningless life of indifference that I lived and pursue things that set my heart on fire, ambitious goals that scared me but were in my heart to do. I determined never to live a mediocre life again or resign to the same excuses that had previously held me back. To quote Miles Monroe, you can never change what you tolerate. I finally bent the boats, acknowledging that it was impossible for me to become my best as long as I was physically here, but my mind was still stuck in Zimbabwe. As a wise man summed this well, bending the boats represent a point of no return, a psychological commitment where you recognize that you have crossed the line and never to cross back again. Australia was my new reality and I had the power to shape it. With that renewed mindset and a great sense of focus, I started to see opportunities previously invisible to me because of the bounds of my own belief system. I quickly moved back to redefine my inner circles, cutting off associations with cynics and surrounding myself with dreamers and doers. I set highly ambitious goals. I wanted to compete at a global stage, to develop deep and irrefutable expertise, and to push myself to the front lines in the fight against cybercrime. Some of my associates advised me to take small incremental steps to cushion myself against embarrassment should my attempt on big goals tank. But they only reminded me of Muhammad Ali's famous words, "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in a world they've been given rather than explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion." 2 years ago, I met a Zimbabwean man at a social gathering. I inquired about his family, his dreams and aspirations. He spoke of his 20-year-old son who was studying finance at a leading Australian university. "That's quite impressive," I responded. Angrily, he shot back, "He is a stubborn fool. We have told him to dump that course and study something else. These courses are for Australians. No bank will ever hire him." This deeply ignorant pronouncement felt like a stab wound deep into my chest. Nothing could be further from the truth. I was already working as a head of cybersecurity for a leading wealth management firm. A close friend of mine, a Zimbabwean girl, had become a finance director at one of Australia's largest banks at the tender age of 28. Several of my friends were already CFOs for large corporations. It doesn't matter where we come from, we can all rise above our circumstances. On the other hand, bad attitudes like punctured tires will take us nowhere. As a man thinketh, so he is. We are the physical manifestation of our thought patterns. To box our ambitions based on the way we look and pass such a toxic mentality to the next generation would be our deepest tragedy. Life is about taking risks. You will never fully discover your potential unless you have the guts to act in the face of adversity. A great philosopher summed this beautifully. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. When I embarked on my When I embarked on my writing journey 3 years ago, I went through several discouraging moments. As a famous author put it, moments of frantic boredom, of angry hopelessness, of wanting to quit forever. But I kept chipping away, writing word by word, paragraph by paragraph, even when defeat felt possible. Nothing at that moment would have predicted what followed. My thought leadership has been published across hundreds of countries. In 2007, one of my articles was voted the Article of the Year by ISACA, the largest IT governance institution in the world. My best-selling book, The 5 Anchors, now dominates Google's search results. I have given multiple interviews with journalists talking about strategic risks such as killer drones and cyber resilience. I never focused on the outcomes. I was only determined to find my why and pursue it to the bitter end. In 2017, as my work was starting to gain industry traction, I was invited to speak at one of Sydney's largest cybersecurity conferences. I felt uneasy about presenting to a multitude of highly accomplished business professionals. In fact, that terrified me. My hands drenched with sweat. My heart pounded faster than a V8 engine. In fact, this terrified me more than my childhood terror of tokulashes leaping over my back. I had several negative thoughts race through my mind. What if I fell off the stairs on my way to the podium? What if I woke up to a shocking news headline, an African man pees in his pants during a major cybersecurity conference? Yet still, I refuse to lean back. Lasting change comes when we choose to do the hard things. A few weeks later, I was surprised when the event organizers advised me that my sessions were actually the highest rated across the conference. Since then, I never looked back. Last year alone, I spoke at more than 14 events, including major international conferences. I keynoted multiple events in front of hundreds of business executives, alongside the former head of the FBI cybercrime. My boot camps have been attended by dozens of business executives. Failure means growth. It means that at least you had the guts to try. It's impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. J.K. Rowling. All of us will face deeply trying moments, for it is the nature of the storm to rise. It takes the night to see the stars. As a young entrepreneur, I know this too well. Weeks spent working on proposals only to be rejected. The struggle to find new work in the face of rapidly depleting cash flows, and so forth. My first LinkedIn posts generated 4 likes. 2 of those likes were my own. But I kept on keeping on despite my temporary defeat. I refused to be knocked down by one punch. No one is ever defeated until defeat has been accepted as reality. Napoleon Hill. Victory often tends to hide behind short-term setbacks. My 4th post on LinkedIn, after a horrible start, went viral, generating more than 6,000 likes and thousands of messages, connecting me to thousands of people. I have since grown my network to more than 28,000, established hundreds of deeply meaningful relationships, and winning multiple business contracts via LinkedIn, helping others. None of these personal achievements would mean anything if, as Angelina Jolie said, I did not live a life of use to others. We are all aware of the conditions back home, that they have reached a breaking point in a state of advanced continuous decay. Kids are out of school, underscoring again that talent is universal but opportunities are not. Some of us who have been fortunate to escape these challenges should not sit back and hope for Westerners to bring change to our communities. Over the last decade, our charity, Education for Rural Africa, which I run with my friend Kudzi sitting here, has raised fees for dozens of underprivileged kids. We have helped repair dilapidated infrastructure in schools and donate textbooks to my former school in Mondoro. For several years, we've sponsored kids via Aid for Africa Down Under, an amazing non-for-profit enterprise that runs an orphanage in Mwenezi. About a year ago, we were so pleased to learn that one of the kids we sponsored actually graduated from the University of Zimbabwe. It's impossible for me to pinpoint every Zimbabwean here engaged in selfless acts, but I would like you to pause a little bit and think of my good friends Alfred and Precious Chidembo, together with an amazing team of volunteers behind Aussie Books for Zim. We have created a strong social movement, shipping over 60,000 books to rural Zimbabwe, setting 7 libraries and impacting more than 8,000 people. Yet still, more needs to be done. It takes only 50 cents to ship a book to Zimbabwe. And imagine that if 200 of us would come together and give $100 each, they would be able to ship 10,000 books, transforming an entire community. Happiness is found in helping others, for it is in giving that we receive, St. Francis of Assisi. If myself, who almost quit Australia, failed to get into Zimbabwe's top universities due to my meager 11 points at A level, a boy who scavenged through dump yards in Mbaira searching for empty Coca-Cola bottles to sell so that I could buy food, could reconfigure my mindset to achieve several big goals, we all can. We are indeed limitless, and we are Zimbos. Congratulations to you all. Thank you.